All right, my friends. Excuse me. On Monday, you got an introduction into ancient Roman architecture, and I asked you to take a special look at the columns when you were going through the buildings with the Maddie and Dada video. So we are going to talk a little bit about the columns today. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of columns. We are really only going to talk about three different kinds. Now, the first kind is called a Doric column, and that is not on this slide. It is just a very plain, simple one. The other second kind is called Ionic, and that is easy to identify because of these swirls. And the third kind is this Corinthian, and that is the sort of fanciest with this leaf pattern. So I have some extra pictures here, and I'm going to put this presentation up so that you can use this as a reference because we are going to draw today some columns, and I just have some more pictures for you to look at. So this sort of breaks it down into the most simple shapes for you. The three main types of columns that are used in both ancient Roman and ancient Greek architecture are the Doric column, the Ionic column, and the Corinthian column. Now, the Doric column is the most plain. You can see it just has a simple top. The Ionic column has those scrolls, and the Corinthian is the most fancy with these leaves. Now, the interesting things about columns is that they have been used as early as 2600 BC by our friends, the ancient Egyptians. And they were used then later by the Persians and Persepolis. And then the ancient Greeks made them popular again in their architecture. They used them as support. And then the ancient Romans took that design and they used the same three styles of columns that the Greeks used, the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns, but they mostly used them for decoration. And then the columns themselves had continued to be used through the Middle Ages into the 1800s, and they're still used to this day. Here's an actual photo of the different types of columns so that you can really get an idea of what they look like three-dimensionally. So they are one piece of stone typically that are carved. And when the buildings got bigger, they eventually had to start breaking them down into smaller chunks. And so what they would do is put either a piece of metal or a wooden dowel down the middle of them, and they would put these smaller drums on top of each other, and then they would go ahead and put that cap on top. Now, here are some buildings that are still standing to this day to show you that these kinds of columns are still around and they are everywhere. You will see them all over the place now that you know what they are and can identify them. So this is that simple that simple Doric column. Here's that spiral swirly Ionic and that very fancy Corinthian. Anybody know what building this is? This is a building in the United States, and as you can see, it is showcasing what kind of column here. If you said Ionic, you are right. And if you said the White House in Washington, D.C., you are right again. So, I just wanted to show you that this kind of architectural support and architectural decoration is everywhere, and it has been around for thousands of years. So we are going to go ahead and get started. What's next? We're going to draw. So we're going to draw the three main kinds of columns. We're going to draw that plain and simple Doric column. We're going to draw, this one's upside down, that Ionic column with the swirls. And then we're going to draw that Corinthian column. Now, I've included a lot of pictures in this slideshow that I'm going to put out for you to look at. So if you want to use something like this, where it's a little bit more graphic, or if you prefer to use one of the schematics like this, or maybe you want to go back here and actually use a photo, whatever you feel most comfortable with. You are going to go ahead and draw those three, and I'm going to give you a quick demonstration to get us started. Okay, my friends, Today we are just going to focus on drawing. So we just need a pencil, eraser, a ruler, or some kind of straight edge. You can use the edge of a folder or a book if you don't have a ruler, and your Sharpie. We're not going to do the painted background. That we'll do next week. And you'll need at least one piece of paper. You may need an extra one depending on how big you draw your columns. So I'm going to start with that ionic column just because I love those swirls. We're going to draw these looking straight on. So we're not going to worry about perspective and trying to show all of that. We're going to draw it as if we're looking straight at them. So I'm using that photograph on the slideshow as my reference. You can use whatever one you really liked. So this one has like a little bit of a top. There's, then the spirals. They kind of come in and around. And you're going to start with your pencil. They sort of look like cinnamon rolls. And then, sometimes I'll put in like a little guideline so that they're even. Like I can see that this one is shorter. So I want that to be nice and even. That looks better already. And then I can erase my guidelines. Okay, now underneath that, there's this sort of rounded edge, and then another one, and then up at the top, this sort of swoops down in between. All right, I'm just going to keep drawing based on this picture, and then I'll come back at the end. All right, so as you can see, I went through and I didn't worry too much about getting those groove details in, but I do want to make sure that I have that nice line going here, because we know that when something is a cylinder, it is going to be rounded, right? So even though we're not putting in that perspective to show that this is like a three-dimensional object, we still want to put in those curves to show that this is a round cylinder. We're going to erase all our pencil lines, and then you can get started on the next one. Okay, so you're going to do all three of the columns in pencil first, then you will trace over them with Sharpie. If you have any questions, send me a message on Schoology, and I will get back with you. And bring your progress pictures with you on Friday when I see you at our live. I can't wait to see these. All right, my friends, I can't wait to hear about how many columns you see now that you're paying attention too, because when I learned about columns, I noticed them everywhere afterward. It's very exciting. All right, my friends, see you Friday.